It all kicks off with a journalist filming what looks like a totally ordinary building. But then a single question from a security guard spirals into this incredibly tense confrontation. And just like that, the curtain gets pulled back on a massive story of global crime, forced labor, and the really messy consequences of one of the biggest infrastructure projects on the planet. So how does one shaky encounter with a security guard blow the lid off a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire? Well, let's connect the dots.
Okay, so our story starts right here, in Bavet, a city in eastern Cambodia. A journalist is filming this place called the Bavet Business Center, and it's a huge, sprawling complex. We're talking the size of a national stadium, with buildings and Chinese signs everywhere. And on the surface, it just looks like any other big development. But what's happening inside? Well, that's the real story. And then, all of a sudden, everything stops. A security guard comes up, speaks in Chinese, and confronts the journalist. That simple, routine act of filming has just become a really high-stakes situation. I mean, what could they possibly be trying to hide in there? This is that exact moment the hidden world behind those walls starts to crack open. So they take the journalist inside into this office, decked out with paintings of dragons and tigers, and he's surrounded by more than 10 people. After some really intense questioning, they let him go, but not before they take his SD card, all the evidence. Right then and there, it becomes crystal clear. This is no ordinary business center.
So, what is really going on in places like the Bavet Business Center? Well, it turns out this isn't just one building. It's a key piece of a massive hidden industry. According to Cambodian NGOs, these places have a name: fraud hubs. And what they are these fortified compounds where criminal gangs traffic people, force them to work, and have them run these sophisticated global scams. We're talking everything from fake investment schemes to romance scams that drain people's entire life savings. And the scale here? It's almost hard to wrap your head around. One local NGO estimates that over 200,000 people are involved in these operations, spread across hundreds of these centers all over the country. To put that into perspective, that's enough people to fill a major sports stadium 4 times over. This is not some small-time operation. It's an industrial-scale criminal enterprise. And when you look closer at who's involved, it's just a story of deception on a global scale. The victims, they're lured from dozens of countries all across Asia and Africa with these fake promises of high-paying jobs. There are even reports that Japanese nationals are among them. And this whole thing runs with the help of some very powerful collaborators. We're talking local power brokers and even senators who allegedly own the properties and casinos where these scams are being run. And to really understand the gravity of this, a report from a bipartisan advisory body to the US Congress puts it bluntly. They say this criminal enterprise rivals the global drug trade in scale and sophistication. We are talking about tens of billions of dollars being stolen from people all over the world. So this all begs a huge question, right? How did this happen? How did Cambodia become this global hub for this type of crime? Well, the answer seems to be deeply, deeply connected to a massive global development project you've probably heard of. It seems to have happened in a few key stages. First, China's Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, this massive project building trade routes through huge infrastructure investments, brought a flood of money into Cambodia. That, in turn, brought a huge wave of Chinese companies and workers. But here's the catch, riding that very same wave were criminal organizations. They used that influx of people and cash as cover to get into the country and build these deep ties with powerful local figures. It was basically the perfect storm of conditions. You had these massive, complex BRI projects creating a kind of economic chaos. You combine that with really lax entry requirements, and this is the crucial part, weak regulatory oversight. All of this created a power vacuum that these criminal organizations were just perfectly positioned to fill. But wait, the story doesn't stop there. The connection to China gets even more complex. It starts to reveal this weird symbiotic relationship between some of these criminal groups and the political goals of the Chinese state. Okay, so check this out. Take this one example that was cited in the US Commission report. The World Hungman History and Culture Association. It was founded in Cambodia by a former mafia boss. Now, while it's allegedly involved in fraud, it also acts as a propaganda machine. It promotes narratives like the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and pushes the One China principle.
So you have this organization that's allegedly stealing money with one hand and pushing a political agenda with the other. It's this bizarre and frankly powerful fusion of crime and statecraft. And this all fits into this broader strategy that's known as United Front Work, where China tries to leverage its massive overseas population to help shape global opinion. And according to sources like the Washington Post, this effort can even include criminal organizations that show loyalty to the party. It's this dark, complex alliance where the lines between patriotism, profit, and crime just get dangerously blurred.
So, let's bring all this back down to the ground. What does all of this, the fraud hubs, the crime, the propaganda, what does it actually mean for the people of Cambodia? Well, the impact has been absolutely devastating. In cities like Sihanoukville, law and order has pretty much broken down. Vigilante groups formed by these same criminal organizations are literally patrolling the streets. They've created what they call no-go zones for local residents who now have to live in this state of constant fear. One resident said you could get arrested just for walking around. And this quote from a woman in Sihanoukville, man, it just says everything, doesn't it? It used to be such a peaceful town. The sense of loss is just palpable. A place that was once peaceful has been completely transformed by this criminal takeover, and it's left residents feeling like strangers in their own home. So with these criminal roots running so deep, all tangled up with local power and global geopolitics, the obvious question is, can anything actually be done to fix this? Well, on the surface, it might look like action is being taken. The Prime Minister launched a crackdown, and it resulted in over 3,000 arrests. But that's really only part of the story. The roots of these criminal groups, which were planted during that BRI boom, are just so deep that any kind of genuine, lasting reform feels like a very, very distant prospect. And this is the really sobering conclusion from a local resident. The influence of China money, in their words, has warped everything. The feeling on the ground is just one of hopelessness, that these criminal networks are now just too entrenched to ever be fully removed. The story of Cambodia's fraud hubs. It started with a single journalist, but it's grown to encompass development, global influence, and raw power. And it leaves us with this really critical question. When initiatives that are supposed to be about progress inadvertently pave the way for this level of criminality, what is the real human cost of development?